it is.
Hey!
We had a little trouble there. Good to see. What is that? What is that?
I do declare. Well, welcome to Live from Pastor Rick's house.
I feel welcome. I do.
Actually, I'm in your home.
Oh, that's right. You're in my home. That's right. We had a hard time getting this thing up and running. And good to see you again. Here we are. You know what? Today we're going to go into the book of Proverbs.
The book of Proverbs.
Right.
I'm ready. You ready?
You're ready? Well, don't you have some intro stuff?
Yes.
Well, why don't you give us a shot?
Well, welcome to Live from Pastor Rick's house. Today's episode 9.
Wow.
So we're gonna tackle the first 4 chapters of Proverbs. We're gonna a little here, a little there.
Take excerpts. Okay. We may even go back. We're not going to do all the Proverbs. But,
you are in for a 4-hour teaching.
A 4-hour tour. So what's your intro?
Oh, but that's my intro.
Oh, okay.
That's all I got.
A little bit of groundwork here for you. These are Proverbs is one of what they call the wisdom books, or the books of wisdom, the poetical books. Solomon is the author of Proverbs, Song of Solomon, Ecclesiastes. Some of the other poetical books are Job and Psalms, and so just get a kind of a feel for this, kind of a background. Webster's defines a proverb as a short, pithy saying pregnant with meaning. How about that? Seashells by the seashore. And he also said, for instance, it's an old familiar saying, trustworthy saying. He's a chip off the old block. In this case, he's
a hunk off the old block.
Oh, yeah, he's a boulder off the old rock. And utterances of wisdom, of course. And what it is, it's a mastery of the art of living under the instructions of God. That's the essential skeletal makeup of this thing. It's a mirror for us to look into to see how far from God's living wisdom, given to us, how far we are from that. You'll see a constant contradiction throughout the Proverbs of God's will, God's wisdom, man's wisdom, over and over and over again. And so as we get into this, we're going to touch base on a few of these things. Proverbs 1, chapter 1, the Proverbs of Solomon, the son of David, king of Israel, to know wisdom and instruction, to receive the words of understanding, to receive the instruction of wisdom, justice, judgment and equity, to give prudence to the simple, to the young man, knowledge and discretion. A wise man will hear and increase learning, and a man of understanding will attain wise counsel. To understand a proverb and an enigma, the words of the wise and their riddles. I just wanted to throw that all together. A couple things about this. When he talks about this, you'll see that instruction and training. You look like you have a giggle coming up.
So we don't talk about what we're going to share.
Oh, okay.
And we're both on the same track here.
Okay.
This is great.
All right. So there's a when you have instruction, there's a frequent flow of correction and reproof. Anytime there's instruction, you need to hear what's wrong as well as what's right. And so that holds true with God, of course. And of course, this is Solomon, the author. And remember, wisdom was God's coronation gift to Solomon.
Oh, that's cool.
Right?
Yeah.
He said, remember, he gave a dream, and he said, anything you want, son, what do you want? And after he was made king, and he said, I'm too small. I don't know anything. I forget how he was pretty young, maybe 8, something like that. I don't know, maybe even younger. I forget, but he says, show me wisdom. Give me wisdom so I can know how to deal with your people, so I can rule them wisely. And that really blessed the heart of God. He says, because you've asked for that, I'm going to do all these great things for you. But even that wisdom that Solomon had was a mere shadow of the wisdom of God. It's just a time. Yet that wisdom blew the minds of the world. And remember, Queen of Sheba came and said, man, half of it has been told, but those were the shadows, that wasn't the real stuff, And so wisdom in a child of God begins with salvation and then expresses itself becoming like God and holiness and gratitude. And so what we see here is living the life God requires of us requires the great skill of God imparted into us. And so God calls us to something that naturally is impossible, but then gives us the supernatural to empower our natural. So that's my intro.
Awesome. Well, chapters 1 through 9 are pretty connected.
Yes.
In the fact that it's very clear that wisdom is moral in nature, and a lot of son language is used.
A lot of what language?
Son language, S-O-N.
S-O-N, okay.
Son language is used. So what was interesting to me is here's a book about acquiring wisdom and is placed in a family setting.
Yeah.
And so just practically, it seems to me that the maximum flourishing of our mind and our hearts is done in the surrounding of our families.
Yes, yes.
And the foundation of a wise man is built from his youth.
And what was your family upbringing like?
Horrible. Help me.
What is that?
So I think right off the bat, I think parents should be encouraged to instruct their children in the ways of God, and Solomon's laying that out very, very clearly, and letting your children raise themselves, or follow their own compass, or follow your own heart. According to Solomon, the wisest man who ever lived, implicitly, basically says is a path that leads to destruction.
Oh, but we know better today.
Been
there, done that. Does not work. Turn on the news.
And I was a youth pastor for 10 years.
Yeah, right.
And the kids that I had, and I had a lot of kids over the years, but the kids that I had that had parents that acted like parents, that gave them rules and boundaries. Versus the kids who had parents who were best buds, were so far apart from each other. The kids who had parents that gave them guidelines were so much better equipped and prepared for life. So I wanted to encourage to heed Solomon's words here. Now this is cool. Verse 5. The wise man will hear and increase in learning, and the wise man will attain wise counsel. So attaining wisdom is directly connected with receiving, not giving. So in order to obtain wisdom, your input and opinion is not necessary.
No kidding. One mouth, two ears. One mouth, two ears. There's a reason for that.
And to me, this just made me think of, all the Berkeley riots and everything that's going on in college campuses today. College should be a place that equips young people to work well in the world. However, what we're seeing is young people rioting and burning stuff down and telling the world how to work well with them.
Good point.
It's a complete reversing of what the institution was built for. I mean, most of our chief colleges in this country were originally theologically based.
Yes, Harvard, Yale, all of
Penn
the
State,
Ivy League, all of them. To teach the word,
to help them to go into the world. Not to get the world prepared for them. It's crazy. So they've rejected being recipients and now play the teacher, and as a result, when you reject wisdom. Because you refuse to hear it and you don't seek actual wise counsel. You're setting your course for destruction. Once again, what Solomon's talking about. It's good to receive. It's good to listen. It's good to hear. And then verse 6, it says to understand a proverb and an enigma, the words of the wise and their riddles. So I love this. And you kind of just touched on it, but I'm going to make it sound a little better. But the verse tells us that we need wisdom in order to understand the words of the wise.
That's a good point.
So, what a picture of election.
Off
the bat. You can't understand wisdom without wisdom, is what Solomon just says.
Exactly.
So where's it come from?
Exactly.
God has to plant that in us.
And think about what Jesus said, started his church. It said, you are the Christ, love of the Son of the living God. Blessed are you, Simon Bar-Jonah, for flesh and blood has not revealed this to you, but my Father's in heaven. That's what the whole church is predicated on. Wisdom given to you to understand wisdom.
Now, at the same time, he had learned from Jesus, but Jesus affirms that God started that in him. You know, so even in a child, God starts that in a child as he receives from his parents.
Right.
You know, so and so you need wisdom. The wisdom doesn't come from nowhere.
And parents are the first exposure to the presence of God that every human being is going to experience.
But also, verse 6, to me, this is such a clear picture of that Christians should be a people of great substance. Listen to this again. To understand a proverb and an enigma and the words of the wise and their riddles. The cookies do not need to be on the lowest shelf. It's basically what Solomon's saying.
They turn into crumbs real fast.
The wise man who is chosen, so a Christian, is to verse 5, work to obtain wisdom. So verse 6, they can understand enigma and riddles. So harder sayings and harder truths is basically what he's saying. So to me, it's so important that baby Christians aspire to become mature.
Oh, yeah.
The mature Christians are not meant to aspire to become like the new believer.
Right.
You know, it makes no sense. No. It makes no sense. It is good for them to work to attain knowledge, and so first, pastors are called to preach,
right,
and to preach strongly.
Yeah.
We're in this neat season, and I don't know how many people this will resonate with, but I'm going to share it.
Okay.
The pastor and the theologian were never meant to be different offices.
No.
They were never designed to be separate.
He has to be a theologian.
They were designed to be together.
Right.
So when you're reading a theological book and it's like there is dead of any sort of application, that's wrong.
Yeah.
And when you read a pastoral work and there's no theological, lean into it, it's wrong.
I know. I want to grow. When I listen to this, I want to grow. If you just give me milk... we need meat.
So teachers and teachings are supposed to be filled with great substance.
Right.
And anyone who disagrees with that, think of the Apostle Paul.
Yeah.
He was the greatest church planner of all time.
Right.
And even Peter goes, I have a hard time getting this guy.
That's a good point. Yeah.
And then the point was to elevate Peter.
Yeah, exactly.
Peter wanted to elevate to that. The first pope wanted to elevate to what Paul was saying.
He's too busy making that hat.
Basket weaving, And secondly, week in and week out, sometimes people go through seasons where they're in church and they don't feel it, you know?
Right.
Or more goes over their head than goes in their heart.
Yes.
And a lot of people settle in that discouragement.
Yeah.
And they go, well, I don't get it.
Yeah.
But Solomon's saying, no, you are to work to attain that knowledge. And if you can't do it, seek wise counsel to obtain that knowledge.
That's exactly right.
So an hour of teaching on a Sunday morning is not the beginning and the end of your week's study.
Right.
It's the beginning of your week's study.
Exactly.
So I want to encourage people that if you don't get something, it's somewhat of a gift of God to challenge you to then take that into your personal life, to go home and start working on it.
I mean, there's obviously something there available to you that can grow you immensely, and to just shrug your shoulders and say, well, I can't get it.
Yeah.
I'll give up. No, I mean, it will do such an incredible work in your soul.
Yeah.
So seek after it,
Well, and I think part of it's the byproduct of how our culture is now.
Right.
Everything's automatic.
Right. Instant.
We're not used to getting something going, I don't understand it, and going, well, let me figure it out.
Right. It's a sense of entitlement.
Yeah.
Give me unified,
There's a famous quote, the internet's the friend of information and the enemy of thought.
Yeah. Who said that?
I have no idea.
Yeah, I like that.
I'd like to claim it, but I can't.
No, that's gonna, I agree.
So I got one more thing out of Proverbs 1. You got any more in Proverbs 1?
I've got more, yeah.
After you.
Well, real quick, parents, you need to be parents. And this is a big thing of what's being said here. And parents aren't, for the most part, being parents a lot today. And it reminds me when I lived in a condo, and our next door neighbors did not believe in like spanking or anything like that, and any form of real discipline for the most part, other than maybe a little bit of a timeout. And so the mother was saying, when my kids are behaving badly, I clap, And that gets their attention, then they usually stop. As she's telling us this story, right? This is summertime. I love this. This outdoes the bee.
Stop lighting the house on fire.
Almost.
Right.
All right, so she turns around. Her front door is open. She has one of her kids holding an umbrella, standing in the doorway facing outside. And the other one's got a hose and spraying it. And she's clapping like a seal, you know.
Oh!
You can't make this stuff up.
Oh, it sounded good on paper.
Oh, it's short. Next day you see her hands all bandaged.
Broken fingers.
Floating in the living room. I'm telling you.
Oh, that's great.
Oh, yeah, it was perfect timing, too.
And she's applauding.
She's trying to make them stop. They're just laughing and spraying off the umbrella going into the house. Oh, man. So anyway, with that being said. All right, so Proverbs chapter 1, verse 7. Where am I? No, I'm in Psalms. Here we go. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and instruction. And of course, I just gave a story that went along those lines. She thought she was instructing us religious people in the ways of wisdom. But the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. And Derek Kidner, if you get anything he does, he says this is the motto of Proverbs, the fear of the Lord. The beginning of wisdom is fear of the Lord. And what he was saying there is that when you say the beginning, it's not like a stage. Okay, you start here and then you get wise. But the idea of, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. It's the controlling principle rather than just a stage or a starting point. That's what it means there. The preeminence of the fear of God. It's not just right thoughts, but it's right relationship with God. It's worshipful submission to God based on his being the covenant God. L-O-R-D is used there, the tetragrammaton, revealing himself to us. And of course, what you see here is, then look at this, verse 8. My son, hear the instruction of your father. Do not forsake the law of your mother, for they will be a graceful ornament on your head and chains about your neck. But what's being said here is this: God should start you off with the most loving authority you could ever possibly have in life. It is a reflection of the Lord himself. There is a relationship between God's authority and parental authority. God starts us off that way, of course. And then if you think about it, the fifth command is, honor your father and mother, that you may live long and prosper. It has a promise, but that is the beginning of all of the commandments on human relationship. Yeah. So this starts there. This begins with, Paul re-emphasizes this in the epistles. Remember, according to God, the parents' main role as parents is to demonstrate to the children an intimate relationship with God. That is your main priority as a parent, to demonstrate to your children an intimate relationship with God, and you see very, very little of that today. So the child, example in the home. Example is the only effective form of teaching. They won't listen to a thing you say if they don't see it.
Right.
And the child is to observe this overflow of divine love. And remember, Romans chapter 13 tells us all authority comes from God. Matthew 28 tells us that all authority has been given to me in heaven and earth, and you go and you make disciples of the nation. It all begins in the home. You're calling. Psalm 119, verse 133, it says, order my steps in your word. So David is wishing to be under orders from God. This is not the way of the world. And it's one of the marks of grace when you actually want God to order you. That's a mark of grace.
Oh, that's cool.
You see, and so the idea is to come under his commands, come under his steps. Whatever you do, Romans says, do all to the glory of God, whether you drink, all that kind of stuff. So that's all wrapped up in authority.
Awesome. Well, it's just cool how authority is in Solomon's writings.
Right.
Beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's hard. I keep thinking about culturally where we're at as a society,
right,
and the struggles people are going through,
right,
and it's viewed as such a negative thing now.
Look at the rebellion today.
Yeah,
people rebel against everything.
Yeah, and it's not that some of it's never justified. You know, I mean, of course, there's a lot of corruption, but you know, but immediately with suspicion towards the institutions,
right,
that are there, that are put in place there to keep us safe.
Right.
And protect us.
Right.
You know, not first responders, government, you know, whatever.
Yeah,
you know,
police, you know, firemen, you know, whatever.
You know, and Solomon here, it's a beautiful thing.
Right.
Called to keep us and instruct us. And so, you know, I just, that right on there.
Yeah, and it is a reflection of the ultimate king. You know, there was a king before there was any human king, and that king was God. God put kings on this earth to represent his kingship. And of course they fail, you know, but then they're chastised, you know. So that's what I have for chapter 1.
That's all I got for chapter 1.
All you have for chapter 1?
I have one more thing. I don't know if I want to share it, though. It's not great, but it's good. I'm going to do it. Verse 12, it says, "Let us swallow them alive in Sheol and whole like those who go down into the pit." That to me is just a really strongly worded passage of the wicked.
Right.
You know?
Right.
So I you know me, I like Near Eastern cultural studies, so I decided to dig into this a little bit. And the metaphor of swallowing down to destruction and death probably derives from the Canaanite god, Mot, M-O-T. I don't know how to pronounce it, but it's M-O-T.
I think I went to school.
who performs his ghastly tasks by swallowing his victims.
Oh.
And so the thought is that these wicked men are using these ancient Canaanite gods as sort of their drive to do what they're doing out of their example.
Right.
So verse 12, it seems to the original hearers of this would have connected these wicked men with these obviously wicked behaviors and hearts.
Right.
Would have connected it also to idolatry.
Yeah.
And so the thought is that if that is true, that these wicked men are also worshipers of false gods.
Right.
You know, which I think is important when reading the Psalms or
yeah.
Proverbs, you know. To
Absolutely.
see what's at the root of the wickedness.
Right. Right.
You know, it's easy to look at something and go, well that we know that's bad.
Yeah.
But why?
Exactly.
And what's feeding that?
Yeah, and if there are no absolutes, how can you say something's good or bad?
Right.
And that is a faith statement anyway.
Yeah.
That's your faith.
Mm-hmm.
You can never know what true reality is. Well, where'd you come up with that?
Which is a truth statement.
Yeah.
There is no. What is truth? All right. Okay. Well, verse 2, or chapter 2.
I don't have anything in chapter 2. I didn't go there.
Man, you know, just when you're as learned as I am, it's just, the floodgates open up. Proverbs 2, verse 11.
You're ready to draft.
Discretion will preserve you. Understanding will keep you. To deliver you from the way of evil, from the man who speaks perverse things, from those who leave the paths of righteousness to walk in the ways of darkness, who rejoice in doing evil and delight in the perversity of the wicked, whose ways are crooked and who are devious in their paths, to deliver you from the immoral woman, from the seductress who flatters with her words, who forsake the companion of her youth and forgets the covenant of her God. For her house leads down to death, and her paths to the dead. None who go to her return, nor do they regain the paths of life. Now, the adulterous woman, we'll notice in the Proverbs, the father's warning the son over and over again of this woman. But that word adulteress there is better rendered either strange or foreign.
Right.
So she's either a strange woman or or a foreign woman. So as the father warns of this adulterous, wayward, strange, foreign woman, and he does it in Proverbs 5:3, 7:5, 22:14, 23:27, 5:20, 6:24, 7:5, 23:27. The strangeness of this woman is seen in her unwillingness to operate the bounds of moral, legal, and customary restraints. And so the point is, she doesn't follow order.
Right.
At the heart of this adulterous woman, in the way the original wording is she is a woman of chaos.
Oh, wow.
And so the adulterous woman in the proverb is a woman who represents rebellion, who represents chaos. And so those who dwell with rebellion and chaos are on the path of destruction.
Wow.
Is what's being brought up here. And so back to hearing and receiving, God has an order to his world.
Right.
He has an order to how a parent should raise their child.
Right.
He has an order to how a child should respect their parent.
Right.
He has an order for how a husband should treat a wife should treat a husband. There's an order to law, to social justice.
How citizens relate to authority.
To forgiveness.
It's very clear.
Over and over and over again. And in accepting God's law, we find life. But to reject it, to reject God's design, is to sleep with this adulterous woman, is to court rebellion and chaos.
That's very cool.
Yeah. So and of course, what does Solomon say? It leads to death.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And it is death.
So I think people tend to forget. If what's the term? Junk in, junk out.
Garbage in, garbage out.
You court chaos.
Yeah.
Rebellion long enough.
And it is chaotic.
And you're in bed with it.
Yeah.
That's the warning to you.
Uh-huh. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
You are on a path that you may never return.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
So
that's what I had on too.
It's funny. You see these perfume commercials, right? Right? And you have the seductive woman, and its name's like whatever, Chantal. Or Mystique Lace, But they really ought to make it biblical, like an ox led to the slaughter. Yeah. Come with me to
mouth of the volcano.
Yeah, what is it? Late in the night, guy goes home with Faith Hill and wakes up with Benny Hill.
It wasn't the perfume that got him in that predicament, though. I'll give you a clue.
Not good. All right, so we go into chapter 3.
I'm ready.
All right, I will read this. Chapter 3, verse 5, trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not to your own understanding. In all your ways consider him, and he shall direct your paths. Do not be wise in your own eyes. Fear the Lord and depart from evil. It will be health to your flesh and strength to your bones. So again, we see all of this wisdom applied.
And just real quick, before you get into your application.
Right.
General R.F.P.R.H placed his hand on that proverb, on Proverbs 3, 5 through 6, as he took the presidential oath of office.
Oh, that's amazing.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah.
That's what meant the most to him in his presidency.
Really?
Yeah, well, I don't just a fun thought.
Oh, yeah. So anyway, thanks for interrupting. But here, and again, we'll see this conflict and this tension in Proverbs about God's will, man's will. The idea of trust here is to take refuge in this. Take refuge in this instead of your circumstances, you see. And that's all I really wanted to say about that. I've got some other things in chapter 4, but what do you got?
Proverbs 3:27, do not withhold good from those to whom it is due when it is in the power of your hand to do so. Do not say to your neighbor, go and come back, and tomorrow I will give it when you have it with you. Do not devise evil against your neighbor, for he dwells by you for safety's sake. I don't really have anything profound here because it's profound in and of itself. Care for the poor.
Absolutely.
Care for people in need.
Right.
And I think what's really important here, because you either go one way, you either go, there's such a need, where do I even begin? Or you see someone with a need and you instinctively go to take care of it, but people so often abuse you.
Oh, yeah.
So it's really important. We see it in Acts chapter 2. They gave to all those who were in need. It's really important as a Christian to have a biblical worldview, and to start assessing what an actual need is.
Yes. Yes.
I'm not. Someone does not need my $100 so they can keep their cable bill.
Well, exactly.
That you have to. Not to be callous or cold-hearted, but I know financially I'm not in the position to give the, there are things.
The church often is
right.
We're doing that.
Well,
for so many people.
I work at the church. I get phone calls several times a day asking for assistance.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And they just go through the phone book.
Right.
When we were Calvary Chapel, Baltimore, Calvary Chapel, Bel Air, they would call me, and I'd go, "Sorry, you don't attend here."
Right.
They would call Calvary Bel Air's number, and I'd pick up. And half the time they'd go, "Is this the same person?" And I go,
"Yeah, you did something wrong."
Right.
Yeah, you've been cloned.
So it's important to address what an actual need is.
Oh, absolutely.
But at the same time, this doesn't necessarily only apply to money.
Oh,
A lot of people are starved for love.
Yeah.
I used to share, since we're on the topic of kids, I didn't want to think I was going to share it, but I'm going to. Is when I was a youth pastor, there were young boys that would come into the church, and I would talk to them and give them attention. And they would become so attached to me.
Right.
They had to hold on to my shirt or my pants. And they would, while they were talking to me.
Oh, man.
And I found it all the time. And in every case, they were in a home without a father.
Oh, my God.
In every case.
That's so sad.
They would speak to me, and they had to hold on to my shirt. I don't even know if they knew why.
Probably not.
And I never, but I would talk with them, and the dad was always out of the picture,
Yeah.
And that is a way of caring. For them.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Just to be there with them.
Just being somebody's friend.
Yeah. That is something you have,
right?
That you can give to someone.
Friendship.
Need.
God befriended us when we hated His guts.
Right.
But
at the same time, say you have friendship to give. You're not there to feed vanity.
Right. Exactly.
So there's a real balance.
Oh, there's people. We had a guy come to the church. This was years ago, and he comes driving up in a red Corvette. And he wanted us to pay his last two bills for his Corvette. And he was indignant that but that's the way people react.
So $700 to pay for your Corvette bill. Okay, got it.
I mean, it's it gets pretty crazy.
Another one is Proverbs 3:32. For the perverse person is an abomination to the Lord, but his secret counsel is with the upright. Proverbs 15:8. The wording there is literally the abomination of the Lord, which we said. And once again, that's over and over in the book of Proverbs. And what's happening is it indicates the utmost displeasure against something.
Oh, wow.
So the abomination of the Lord is God's way of saying, to the nth degree, I hate this.
Wow.
I hate this. And once again, it's back to order. A perversion is worse than a rejection. It's taking God's order and saying, I will distort this to what I want. What does Jude say? They pervert the grace of our Lord into lewdness. And for them is reserved the blackness of darkness forever. It is an utmost displeasure towards. And so, you know, once again, how do we handle the things that are godly? You know, how we pervert a marriage. You know, could be of the utmost displeasure to God. How a pastor handles his office. You know? And how a son handles his parents' authority. You know?
That's true.
So I have very strong warnings in that. And I got one note for chapter 4, so I'm done with 3.
All right, well, let me take us into 4, and we'll see how terribly you fail.
Mr. No Notes.
Mr. No Notes. Oh, every time I hear a guy with no notes, I'm ready. Not everybody, but I just want to, let me give you some notes.
Study next time. There's my note.
Trust me. So anyway, some guys wing it pretty good, but all in all, it's a
I know I couldn't.
Yeah, I've tried it before. Well, I had the notes so that I didn't need the notes.
Well, that's different than not preparing.
Right. You know. So anyway, Proverbs 4, verse 23, keep your heart with all diligence. Some translations say guard, like a military thing, for out of it springs the issue of life. And this is what hit me with that. There's great power in full-heartedness. You know, it can even if you're wrong in what you so strongly believe, you can change the world. I mean, Hitler and Stalin, they were men of great conviction.
Yeah.
You know, the Pol Pot and the Khmer Rouge, the whole thing, as wrong as they were, so much is accomplished when a heart is full. When it has deep conviction, it has force in it. And so half-hearted people without great conviction, they just kind of live on, and as far as impacting the world, they would almost be better off uncreated, because people just feed off of them. They're just kind of existing and fed upon by other people, but there's tremendous power in that full-heartedness, and we're going to look at that Sunday, Ephesians chapter 3, that Paul says, look, this is what I want you to know. I want you to know the height, the depth, the breadth, and the width of the love of Jesus Christ, because to experience that, to be filled with God himself, and there's just tremendous power in that. You know, it's life-changing power, and that's part of what Solomon's saying here. Yeah.
Awesome.
I like that. You know?
Yeah.
That's true, too. We know that.
Oh,
you don't have enthusiasm. It's hard to do anything.
Oh, sure.
You know?
Well, and that's another thing. You know, people are so quick to be wishy-washy now.
Oh, yeah.
You know, to not take sides. And if you live life that way, you're going to be someone who's substanceless.
Oh, yeah.
Because you're
nothing's
you're
real.
going to have nothing to root into.
Right.
You know?
Here, my life is built on toothpicks.
Show me a man who has enemies, I'll show you a man who stood for something. You know?
Absolutely.
You know, so it's, you
absolutely.
know, make your roots in something.
Right.
Your foundation. You know, I was listening to somebody the other day about this whole football thing.
Yeah.
And he was saying, it was Ben Shapiro, and he was saying, you know, football used to be something that everyone could talk about.
Right.
That was unpoliticized.
Right.
And we could just enjoy.
Right.
A Democrat, Republican, gay, straight, it didn't matter. You got around and you said, did you see that pass?
Right.
You know, but it's starting to become so politicized. He goes, it's just now another division in our country.
Absolutely. It's tragic.
Yeah. So I don't know where I was going with that.
Well, I mean, I mean, you're right. It's the way our culture is today. Everybody wants to be heard, but nobody wants to listen.
Yeah.
You know, and if people would just listen, wait a minute, I know you feel this way, but I feel this way too. So let's agree to disagree or whatever and move on, but let's unite. Let's build. Let's not tear.
We're using everything in this country that we could universally agree on and enjoy is all starting to fall apart.
Yeah.
Late night television, they used to be as neutral as possible.
Oh yeah,
it's all politicized.
It's a global agenda.
And no matter what side you're on,
right,
you're alienating
right
half the country.
It shows you how strong the movement is to undermine America.
Yeah. So, you know, once again, now there's nothing to unify against. You know, there used to be such pride for this country, no matter how you saw the future being.
Right.
Now there's half the country starting to hate our origins and our roots.
Oh, yeah.
You know, so we're losing all commonality.
Right.
You know, so as Christians, you know, it's important for us to build our house upon the rock.
Exactly.
That is Scripture.
And it's so poorly thought out. When you think about it, look, you study any nation for the most part, and there is so much brutality and violence and tribal warfare and slavery and injustice and colonialism and all these things. Virtually, I mean, I'm sure every country. So, you know, acknowledge the good. Yeah, we got here however we got here. Whatever was bad in the past is bad. Let's work to just build it up and not tear it down, because nothing good's going to come out of tearing it down.
Well, and I think half of that movement, so the conservative movement is talking a lot of not then this is universally true, but are saying that it's all good.
Right.
You know, but there has been a lot of injustice.
Absolutely.
You know, not that all conservatives believe, of course.
No, they'll admit it.
And the left are very quick to point out all the injustices in the pact, but they forsake the good.
Yes, exactly.
You know, once again, the Book of Jude tells us to learn from our mistakes.
Yes, exactly.
It's okay. You know, he brought up the Israelites out of Egypt.
Right.
You know, God refers to that over and over again as a colossal victory.
Right.
You know, as I pulled you out of Egypt, as I brought you.
Right.
attached to that story, though, is severe idolatry, is severe waywardness.
Right.
Just because those things happen doesn't mean the story is a failure.
That's a good point.
You know, we're about to go through the story of Martin Luther.
Right.
You know, there was a lot wrong
with problems.
Martin Luther. Yeah. But we celebrate the man.
Exactly.
You know, so there's, you know, we celebrate David.
Right.
He was an adulterous murderer.
That's a good point.
You know, Moses killed a guy.
Right.
Paul was a murderer.
Yeah, Paul was a
Peter was a coward.
Right. Yeah. And a big mouth and a delusional.
Yep. So you know, you can love somebody for something.
Right.
And go, well, there is this stain on their life, and acknowledge it, and that's okay.
Yeah.
You know,
this is what happened as a founder of our country or whatever. Yes, he did this or that, but you know, the end game is this is that.
Yeah.
And let's acknowledge it for what it is, and we're all blessed by it, so let's move on.
Yeah. Proverbs 4:4. He also taught me and said to me, let your heart retain my words, keep my commands, and live.
Oh, I like that, huh?
Solomon.
Yeah, that's a dad.
So, the first 4, well, not mine, but no, the first 4 chapters, it's a father to a son.
Right.
Instructing him. And then by Proverbs 4:4, the father instructing the son through this whole book just announced that he learned all this from his father.
Right, David.
So he learned. So again, this 4-chapter bracket is once again encapsulated in the importance of family.
Right.
And instructing your children, and those things are in full display here. You know, and once again, to think back on kind of my generation, the millennials.
Right.
You know, the people are really hard on millennials.
Oh, sorry, it just happened.
I'm sick of this. But they're really hard on millennials. Mm-hmm. And the truth is, they didn't wake up one day and decide to be done with God.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
There's a real truth that most of their parents failed them.
Yeah.
They did not train them. They did not teach them the word. They did not prioritize the Bible.
Didn't get them in church.
And a lot of their parents learned it from their parents. Right. So the hippie movement.
Right. Yeah.
You know, I mean, so there are real consequences.
Right.
To forsaking the proper instruction and training of your children.
Yeah.
You know, and a lot of millennials now, they're going through that right now. We're just seeing what happens when parents neglect their duty. And it's not that the millennials are off the hook. They make their own decisions too. But dealing with a lot of young people myself, they have no understanding of biblical truths. Mm. They have no idea what they're talking about when it comes to the Bible.
Yeah.
And you know, I think of old world, you know, people you know in their 70s and 80s that are alive today. You know, they had seasons of waywardness, but they always knew.
Right.
From their childhood it was put in them.
Right.
You know, they had some but we're at a point now where people have no idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's really scary.
It is scary.
But the church's response, we have been gifted. God has gifted us wisdom, right. So the church's response is to not say, "I'm done with these crazy people." Well, the church's response is to enter into their lives and to show them, you know, to take care of the poor, to take care of those who don't know, to step into their lives and say, "Well, this is what I have."
Yeah,
I know about God. I know about Jesus. I know what good parenting is, and to demonstrate that in their lives, and to show them that we're fine, and to show them that in their lives, and so, you know,
very good. No, I think it's great. So, I think we're running. Yeah, we're running a little long today. Why don't we? You got something else?
I'm done.
Okay, well, folks, thanks for looking in, and I guess we're going to go pick up your car, huh?
Yeah, I needed an oil change.
And on the way, we're going to have spicy beef noodle soup. Did you hear that, Tara? My wife's out of town. Last thing she said was, be good with your diet. Well, I'm going to be great with my diet.
It's just soup. The thing's this big.
Let's go get a pitchfork and eat soup. All right, let's pray. Why don't you pray?
Yeah, sure. God, we love you. We praise you. Thank you, God, that I was raised in a godly family, and just What a blessing and an honor, God, to be called your own. What a blessing and honor, God, to know you and to cherish you and delight in you and to be instructed in the paths of righteousness. God, now help us to be a blessing to others, God. Help us to let passion for your house consume us, God, so that we instruct others in the paths of righteousness, God, either by word or by deed, God, but give us the boldness to do it either way, and preferably both. So be with us now, and in Jesus' name we love and we praise you. Amen.
Amen. Thanks, guys. See you next week.
Ba-da-ba-ba-da-ba.